welcome back to another episode of Hail Yes, a Michigan football and basketball podcast by the Detroit Free Press. I am Andrew Burkle, of course joined by our Michigan beat writer Tony Garcia. And Tony, we're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon. There's just 3 games left in the college football season, and there's snow on the ground. It's officially put up or shut up time for Michigan football now coming off the bye, right?
That's exactly what it is. It was a well-timed bye. I know we're going to get into sort of what their bye week goals were and where they're at overall. But no, they can see the finish line. They know exactly what's ahead of them. And cold weather football in the Midwest is really what we all live for. So glad it's here.
Absolutely. What is your thought real quickly on the 2 byes? I think it's kind of nice, especially with this extended season, the 12-team playoff, if you get in there, I think it makes sense, right?
Yeah, seems to. I just have a selfish view. I'm like, great, another weekend to breathe, right? Like, honestly, I've only thought about it for myself. It gives you a chance to just sort of come up for air a little bit. Although, of course, last week when Michigan had a bye, Michigan Hoops opened its season. Just quickly, as you said, we're recording this on Tuesday. Michigan basketball has a game tonight in Detroit. So we're not really going to get to talk about that a ton. Quick prediction, and you'll all know already what happens. I think Wake Forest does a lot of things that Michigan kind of struggles with. Like they switch off ball, they force turnovers, and they're just kind of scrappy down low. But I don't think they have the size or the skill to compete with Michigan. I think Michigan wins this game by somewhere between 15 and 20 points. Should be pretty comfortable. Should not be anything like what happened last year when they were in Greensboro. They bobbled a 10-point lead away in the second half.
All right, and that concludes our hoops talk for the day.
That's all right.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about basketball last week, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about hoops for the rest of the way. But for now, let's just get right into it. The topic everybody is kind of wondering about, right? So Michigan had a week off, a chance to get their bodies right, and perhaps, even more importantly, was a chance to reset for star freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood, who, he really struggled the last 2 games before the bye against Michigan State and Purdue. So, Tony, what do you think that reset looked like for Bryce from what you heard and saw at Schembechler? And do you think it's going to be enough to get this passing attack rolling again, a little bit of time and everything else?
Yeah, when we talked to Sharon at Schembechler, it was kind of the same thing that he said after Purdue. It's like, well, it's not all on Bryce. It's about protections. It's about route depth. It's about timing. It's about spacing. I think his line is spacing plus timing equals completions. I might not have that exact, but it's pretty close, which makes sense. But he's been doing what he can to sort of take the onus off of Bryce. But then he went on Inside Michigan Football last night and was not critical of Bryce by any means, but was, I don't know if honest is the right word, maybe a little more blunt, a little more direct.
I was going to say blunt. You took the word out of my mouth. Yeah.
There we go. A little more direct about what they're saying. So here's what he said on Inside Michigan Football as far as what they were looking to clean up. He said, go back to basics. Talk about your footwork, your eyes, your hips, where the ball is going to be, throwing on time, and all of those things. He's so athletic. He's so talented, but let the creative plays come to you. Don't force anything. Play within yourself. Obviously, we were great with ball security drills this week and doing things to emphasize that to him. Of course, Bryce had 2, I think you would call them uncharacteristic turnovers in the red zone, given he had only had 1 turnover in the red zone all year and only, I believe, 3 on the season through 8 games. So to have 2 in the 9th game against a Purdue defense that is not great, that was definitely surprising. And so, yeah, I think that's what Sharon said it best. And I think that's well said. And that's kind of what we've been saying on here, right? It's like, it feels like it's a little rushed. It feels like as soon as that first read's not there, he's scrambling and looking to make something happen instead of staying in the pocket, just navigating the pocket and finding ways to not just flush and run. We know he can do that, but that's supposed to be sort of a break glass in case of emergency situation, not option B. And I think it's been option B. It should be C or D. And they're trying to get Bryce back to just trusting what's got him here.
Isn't it kind of funny looking back on the Central Michigan game when we're like, oh, there's the run, there's the rollout ability, there's the scrambling, there's the legs of Bryce Underwood. It almost feels, with some exceptions, drives here and there, that it almost like he hasn't been able to turn it back to the pocket attack that he was doing those first 2 weeks since then. It's almost been like an adjustment, over adjustment to where he's too much reliant on his legs at time and not really breaking down the defense like he was, perhaps too much to a fault in the first 2 games of the season, we're like, hey, why aren't they using his legs more? And now ever since, it's been like, oh, okay, let's kind of recalibrate that backwards. And, he is a true freshman. I was thinking about this during the bye week. Do you remember what we talked about and what you wrote about before the season about how few number 1 quarterbacks come in and have immediate, like, true success? I mean, I guess Michigan is 7-2, right? So relatively, he's been pretty successful in leading Michigan to a winning record and putting them in position to have a chance at the playoff. But it hasn't always looked great. So, I just kind of took that bye week to put things into perspective a little bit. Maybe is this kind of like what we should have expected for a true freshman quarterback coming into play in a Big Ten conference, and especially he's not playing for Texas, old school Cliff Kingsbury, Texas Tech air raid, right? Like this is a offensive attack that even with the first round pick and JJ McCarthy never put up gaudy numbers, right? So maybe is this just kind of what we should have expected for a true freshman quarterback, even as talented as he is?
I mean, I think in a lot of ways, this might be slightly less than we expected, but I think we were trying to respectfully encourage people to pump the brakes, right? Just because we mapped out how difficult it was. You just said it again there, just how few true freshmen have success. Raiola, Ewers, Cade Klubnik, all the number one picks, and how it took a couple years.
A lot of them don't even play right away.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, and so it was pretty clear that Dylan, I was about to say Dylan Raiola, that Bryce was going to be the guy, right? And so it was, I guess the most surprising part to me is that Michigan is not taking a ton of deep shots. And I only say that based on what they did in the spring. And you can't make judgments about what the fall offense is going to look like in terms of the spring. But for me, that's more been like a personnel sort of way. Like Bryson Kudzall, who ran for over 100 yards on that day. It's like, obviously, this guy's like maybe going to be RB3, right? And we might talk about him a little bit more later. And Peyton O'Leary was a spring game hero before. Amarian Walker was a spring game hero before. And you haven't heard anything from these guys ever. So personnel-wise, you can't make any judgments. But I figured that was sort of the first look at a Chip Lindsey offense, and they were calling it watered down. And I was like, I mean, there must have been 10 shots at least of 20, 25 plus air yards. And so I thought that there was just going to be some more deep shots. But as Michigan is sort of, I mean, it's a philosophy that everybody has, but really it was Jim Harbaugh who would say, look, just win by 1 point. I don't care. Win the game any way you can and then move on to the next week. And if you do that every week, you'll end up pretty happy at the end of the season. And Michigan's really done that. They've found that their best path forward is by leaning on the run game, leaning on the defense, and not putting their true freshman quarterback in position to turn the ball over or to just take deep shots. And even if it's 50-50 balls, because maybe they don't have the receivers they'd hoped they'd have in order to make some of those 50-50 balls. Remember, back in the spring, I think his name is Skylar Bell, who ended up at UConn, it was thought that he was about to join the Wolverines. He's like a Triple Crown winner right now. Dude's got like 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, almost 100 catches. And I'm not saying that a UConn receiver is the difference between an explosive Michigan pass game and not. But we did say, I mean, when we set like our over-unders, right? Like the passing touchdowns weren't that high. And we were kind of on the fence about 15 passing touchdowns. Now he's not even half of that yet. So it is less. But we didn't set it at 23 touchdowns, or anything crazy. And so in terms of every game, I mean, everything we predicted before the season, that's exactly how every game's gone. All 7 games they've been favored in, they've won. Both games they have been picked against, they've lost. I think everything it's not as enjoyable as Michigan fans would want it to be, but things are kind of on track other than this sort of wall it seemed Bryce has hit the past 2 weeks. That's been a little surprising. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's I feel like it's been kind of a weird season to talk about, right? Because it's almost like, yeah, everything's going to plan, but your eyes will sometimes tell you that that's not really what you're seeing, right? Like I remember thinking back to that 24-10 win over Wisconsin, right? Like that wasn't pretty. You end up winning by 14 points, right? So it's not really like you're going to get on here and start being like, oh man, cause for concern, right? But it wasn't really anything to write home about. Same with Purdue. Hey, you win, you advance, late season game, you got to take it, right? But it just hasn't always looked the part. But like you said, that's not really what the Michigan program builds itself on. We could get into another big picture conversation about, Sharon's attack and this offense and, our are quarterbacks really able to put up big numbers in this? But we kind of talked about that recently on the podcast. So let's go like back to this bye week here, resetting. What are the most important injury stories, lines you're watching? Because that's obviously a huge thing during the bye. And do you think guys are kind of trending in the right direction and getting this team back to clicking on all cylinders a little bit?
The trending that way, yes, overall. I would say Michigan had 3 goals this bye week. It was get healthy, don't get hurt, and recover. Right? I mean, it's all the same thing. That was Michigan. That was Michigan's MO. I mean, that's my idea of humor. I mean, that was really Michigan's goal this week, is like, we just got to get bodies back. And so I'll try to rip through. I mean, there's a number of key injuries, and I think they're all worth updating. So I'll rip through them as quickly as I can. Michigan was down a trio of linebackers: Cole Sullivan, Jimmy Rolder, Jayshawn Barham. Reading the tea leaves, it sounds like Cole Sullivan might be the most. Like if only one of the 3 was going to play, it sort of sounded like Sullivan. I definitely wouldn't rule out Jimmy Rolder. He's from Orland Park, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, went to Marist High School in Chicago. He's a lifelong Cubs fan. So this is a big game for him, right? Playing at Wrigley against Northwestern, especially now that he's finally getting reps. So he's going to want to be on the field. Barham, who left early against Purdue. It was an upper body situation. Seems like they're going to see how he goes throughout the week. Rod Moore, it does not sound like he is coming back just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's a just hold off until Ohio State and then give us everything you got. If that's 15 snaps, if that's 20 snaps, because Rod Moore, when I talked to him this summer, he's like, look, I'm not playing less than 100%. I've put in too much time and have too much good tape out there to have scouts now worry about where I am, right? And if I try to come back and I'm not quite there, I'm going to be smart about my NFL future. But this is a guy who's from Ohio, who hears about it every time he goes home. He's 4-0, 3-0 playing against the Buckeyes, and he is going to do everything he can to finish his career unblemished against Ohio State. So best guess is he might try to give it a go then. I don't see him playing this week. Hogan Hansen, tight end, is maybe this week, maybe Maryland. That's up in the air, it seems. Justice Haynes will not play this week. As we reported last week, he had a procedure done on his right foot. Seems to still be in a boot. That's going to be a week-to-week situation. From what I've heard, they are also hoping to get him back against Ohio State. That one, I think hope is the operative word. It doesn't mean they can't, but they're not. I mean, there are no assurances that he's going to be back by the end of this month. And last but not least, Evan Link, the starting left tackle, not expecting him to play either. Based on how he was carted off that game against Washington, things looked really worrisome. It sounds like there's hope that he plays again this regular season.
All right, yeah. I mean, just running through it, it's pretty crazy how many guys.
A lot of key players.
It's piling up. But no, first of all, secondly, I was thinking too, like, you do a great job of contextualizing it all, because this information is not like readily available on an injury report like it is in many other sports, right? So it's kind of just context clues. So appreciate the putting it all together, because it's not easy, even as a fan, as a reader, as an editor, as a writer. It's not easy to contextualize it all, right? Because there's so many moving parts,
and they don't disclose. Like, you got to see what happened. You got to watch the replay. I mean, like, even the Jimmy Rolder thing, a lot of us didn't realize up in the box, because it was like really late game what happened to him at MSU. But then one of his teammates sort of let slip that he might not be playing. And we look back and it's like, what was going on? It sort of looked like a hamstring thing that he was holding on to. We still haven't heard specifically, but it's a lot of things like that. Michigan, they are very careful with their HIPAA violation. That's sort of a cop out, because you're allowed to talk about it. But if that's the way they want to play, there are tons and tons of coaches who say we don't talk about injuries. And so that's our job, to sort of analyze what's going on.
All right, let's take a look at this week here coming up. Northwestern at Wrigley Field. I mean, the vibe should be awesome. It's going to be 11 a.m. Central Time, so it's going to have that, beer in the morning type feel. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you can almost sense that feeling in the air when there's beers going around and it's not even to the PMs yet. So it should be a great vibe at Wrigley. But as far as on the field, what are the keys to this game? And is Northwestern capable of pulling off an upset here?
I'm just thinking, you got me caught on this beer thing. I would love to have a beer in the morning in Chicago and just go watch this game for fun. You know what I mean? I'm not allowed to do that. So such is life. But the short answer is yeah. Northwestern has a chance in this game. It's not a great one. Michigan opened as a 9-point favorite. It has climbed to 9.5, 10, 11, 12. I think it's 12.5 now. So there's a lot of money on Michigan here, but Michigan's won 13 of 14 games in this rivalry. And I guess you call it a rivalry. In this matchup is probably more apt. The last time Northwestern won this game was 2008. So it's been a while, but obviously, I mean, each team has turned over 15 times since then, so that's all irrelevant. But this is a good Northwestern team. This is a much better team than the one Michigan pummeled last year, 50-6, to really sort of flip its season and hit the home stretch with some gas. No, I mean, Preston Stone is a good quarterback. Caleb Kamalafe is their really good running back. I mean, his numbers are almost identical to Jordan Marshall. He's got 142 carries, 726 yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 fewer yards, same amount of scores on maybe 15 more carries or so. So pretty close to, and that's obviously very solid. And so, yeah, I mean, just long and the short, I mean, that's going to be my short answer. And then we can get into the sort of the keys of the game very quickly. But yes, Northwestern has a shot.
Yeah, the Wildcats coming off back-to-back losses, 7-point loss to Northwestern, and then a 38-17 loss to USC.
You said 7-point loss to Northwestern. Who was the 7-point loss to?
Why did I say that? 7-point loss to Nebraska. The 2 N teams in the Big Ten. There we go. So I got it right eventually. So yeah. So I mean, they're not a great team, but they're kind of competitive consistently, right? Like even that 38-17 loss to USC, I was watching that game. It was the Friday night one, right? And it was just like they would never feel like, oh, this thing is running away from them, right? Where they quit and the game gets away from them, which can happen to teams like Northwestern who aren't athletically going to match up with your Oregons and your USCs necessarily, right? But they kind of keep it close. Even when it's not going their way, has kind of been what I've seen.
That's right. And I feel that score, 38-17, I mean, it's not that dissimilar from what Michigan went through there, right? I mean, 31-13, 38-17, that's all the same ballpark, number one. And number two, that game was actually closer than that final score would indicate because I got to watch that on Friday night as well. It's 14-14. 3 minutes left in the half. Northwestern gets a pick. They look like they're about to return it for the touchdown, and then big fella goes for the switch from the right arm to the left arm to extend it at the goal line. And Jaden Mayava, good hustle by the USC quarterback, just sort of pops him on the 1 yard line. And like Bryce Underwood did against Purdue, he fumbles through the back of the end zone. And so instead of being up 21-14, it's tied at 14. USC goes up a score. Northwestern gets the ball back in the third quarter. They got it 4th and 3 at the USC 41 yard line. There's some sort of miscommunication. They end up calling a timeout. And then they punt it, and then USC scores from there. And so, but you got to go for it there. What do you got to lose if you're Northwestern on the road? I mean, you're not going to shut this team out. You need points to win. So I thought that was coaching malpractice. And then also in the first half, did you see that trick play by the punter so USC, it's 7-7. USC is in punt formation. And then they throw it, which sounds like something we've all heard, right? But this wasn't the punter back there. It was their backup quarterback wearing the same number as their punter. And they have no names on the back of their uniform. I thought that was just super scummy. I mean, it is. If it's not against the rules, you got to do it. And so I'm not saying that I just think the rule needs to be changed because that's garbage. You can't have a quarterback and a punter with the same number. I mean, and I mean, it's not like they're different sizes or different races where it's like, well, this guy is this guy, this guy is that guy. I mean, they're really similar in stature and there was just no way to know, right? So if you're needing fake punts, if you're needing fumbles through the end zone, right? This game could have been really different. So it's just worth pointing out. I think you made a great point. Northwestern is scrappy. They do not go down easily.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing of that game was the Mayava strip sack on his own interception going into was it an interception or fumble? I think it was a pick, right?
It was an interception.
Yeah, and then Mayava strips it out, flips the game completely on its head. But the point being, the Northwestern was going really kind of shot for shot with USC up until that point. They ended up getting outscored 17-3 in the second half. It just kind of it got a little away from them, but they had the physicality and stuff to match up with them through the early parts of the game, right? Which USC and Northwestern is not a guarantee. So again, long story short, this isn't going to be a team that Michigan should expect to just roll over and, blow them out at Wrigley, right? I think a lot of that point spread jump, don't you think at least a big part of that had to do with fans and bettors and stuff looking at that and be like, this is at Wrigley Field. it's going to be a huge Michigan crowd. I feel like that had a big reasoning in why that went up so much, because 12.5 was bigger than I expected it to be, and it didn't start that way, right?
Yeah. And I think certainly that's part of it. And I expect that to be the case, right? I mean, Michigan has a huge alumni base in Chicago, and obviously Evanston is just up the road, but I would expect this to be probably more than 50% Michigan fans, like maybe like a 60-40 Michigan split, or somewhere around 50-50. Nothing like a true road game or a normal road atmosphere would be. So yeah, I think that has to do with it. Also, it's not like it crossed any really key number. I guess 10, sort of, right? But it's not like it was 2.5 and then crossed over 3, or 5.5 and crossed over 7. To go from 9 to 12 is still 2 scores. So that's as much as a spread can really climb in my eyes without it being like huge alarm bells. I mean, I think Michigan is in a good spot to win this game, but I wouldn't, as much as I would normally be scared off of picking a team where the numbers climbing against them, I don't know that I am in this case.
Interesting. Okay, let's take a little bit of an untraditional break here. We've gone a little long. We'll get to the keys to the game against Northwestern, our predictions, and our picks on the other side, so stick with us. Lots of good stuff still to come. Welcome back, everyone. Tony, you mentioned this is technically a rivalry game. A lot of people might not know that. So give us a little bit of a history lesson on why these two teams are rivals, because it's not necessarily Michigan or Ohio State as far as the level of awareness around this one.
Yeah, it is now a trophy game between Michigan and Northwestern. This is the third time they will be playing for the George Jewett Trophy. George Jewett was the first black player in the FBS. He played at Michigan in 1890 and 1892, then left for Northwestern in 93 and 94. And no, we're not talking 1993 and 94, the century before. I mean, these teams have been playing football for a while. So, and he was the first black football player in the FBS. But the real reason, which is all great, but the real reason I wanted to give the shout out is because he was the valedictorian at Ann Arbor High, which is now Ann Arbor Pioneer, my alma mater. I'm just a big George Jewett guy. And I'm from Ann Arbor, and I went to grad school at Northwestern. So there's a lot of ties around this for me. So I'm just a big fan of George Jewett, and I just hope everyone has fun. You know what I mean?
You got to make it about yourself in some way, right, Tony? Especially when these two teams get together. But
how could I not?
Can Pioneer claim Ann Arbor High, though? I don't think you can put Ann Arbor Pioneer, right? It's Ann Arbor High that became Pioneer, right? I mean, no, it's not the same building. They built Pioneer later on. That was a new...
Right, but okay. But Ann Arbor High, Pioneer... When they built Pioneer, it was still called...
Let me ask you this. Could someone who went to Ann Arbor Huron...
No, they can't. No. When they built Ann Arbor Pioneer, it was called Ann Arbor High, and then they switched it to Ann Arbor Pioneer once they built Huron.
Because I think that either only everybody from Ann Arbor School should get to claim them, or nobody should, because they're all broken up and diversified.
I disagree. I disagree entirely, because Ann Arbor Pioneer was Ann Arbor High before it was Ann Arbor Pioneer. Ann Arbor Huron was always Ann Arbor Huron, and Skyline, I was in 10th grade when Skyline came around. I mean, that's brand new. They don't get any claim.
Skyline can claim George Jewett for all we know. Who knows? I think anybody who went to Ann Arbor can claim him by my ruling.
Oh my God. You're just such a friendly guy. You're just giving handouts out here. This is a Pioneer thing, and everyone else can see their way out of it.
Okay. Enough Pioneer talk.
Okay, but before we get into the breakdown, while we're having fun, I have a quiz question for you, Andrew. Who has the most 20 yards plays this year on this Michigan football team?
The easy answer, first thing that comes to my head, is Justice Haynes, but I don't think that you would ask me that because he's not playing. So I'm going to go with a surprise, and I'm going to guess his backup. I'm going to guess Marshall.
No, you get one more guess.
Okay. Andrew Marsh.
There you go. I thought maybe you were going to say like McCulley or someone else. Yeah. Andrew Marsh, 9 receptions and one rush for more than 20 yards. I think everybody given two guesses would have said Haynes and would have said Marshall. But, and obviously if I hadn't set it up, like if you were just listing it and you didn't know it was like a setup, like a surprise, you kind of said it, right? Those would obviously be the first two guesses. Isn't that surprising? Andrew Marsh.
I mean, he definitely has the juice, right? You see him right away in the field, like, okay, this guy, he can play. Especially after the first few weeks, he got his feet wet, and then ever since then, it's been the Andrew Marsh show for a lot of. Anytime he gets the ball, you can see it right away. But how many 20-yard plays does Justice Haynes have? has it all been 50-yard plays, all those 50-yard ones and nothing really in the 20-yard range?
Yeah, I didn't go down that far. I saw some notes about Andrew Marsh with the most. I would say Haynes probably has 8 or 9.
Yeah,
and I think Marshall probably has 7 or 8.
He has at least 6 or 8 50-yard plays, right? So
I think it's 4 or 5, but there's a number of them.
Okay, that sounds right.
This is going to be bad podcasting if we try to do it. I think it's 5. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Of those really big home runs. And that's what we've been saying, right? Like either if he breaks it to the second level, it's 50. But if he doesn't, it's in that 6, 9 kind of range, which is still good. I mean, nobody's going to disparage Justice Haynes here, but it's just, he doesn't have a lot of 25s. You know what I mean? Like, cause if he's to that second level, he is gone. And Jordan Marshall has 2, I can think of 3 really long runs that Jordan Marshall has. He had one against Purdue, one against Michigan State, and one, actually maybe the one against Central Michigan was called back. Okay, this is bad podcasting. But the point is, it's Andrew Marsh.
Now it's officially bad podcasting once we start going through Jordan. Justice Haynes was acceptable, but once we started going through Jordan Marshall's, then it became a problem.
Yeah, that's where we draw the line.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, you wanted to go through some of the keys of the game, right? So what do you think are the keys to this game for Michigan, X's and O's wise, and past the victory outside of the obvious, right? Getting that passing game is going to be something that everybody's going to be watching, right? So give me some keys.
Exactly. I tried to go with 3 that aren't the passing game has to be better because, that's all everyone's talking about, right? So 3 other keys. First is, what's the opposite of the pass is the run, right? So Michigan number 9 in the country at rushing for more than 225 yards per game. They've run 61% of their plays. Obviously they've struggled through the air. So Michigan is going to need to move the ball on the ground. They have, I believe, 4 or 5 games with more than 200 rushing yards and 4 games with 250. So they've done this a lot and against some decent teams, but I mean, USC, they didn't get it going. Oklahoma, they didn't get it going. I don't know if Nebraska, they were able to cross 200. It was probably close. So that's just plain and simple, right? When the passing game is not going the way you want, you need to be able to move the sticks on the ground. And that's going to be, I wrote about it on freep.com. They're not going to be afraid to ride Jordan Marshall. He's run for 25 carries or 25 times, both games. He started Washington and Purdue, and he went over 130 yards in each game. Don't be surprised if he has 25 touches again. And Sharon Moore said it. He's like, we don't want to give him 30, but if that's our path to victory, we will do it.
Quickly, who might come in for a few carries here and there to give him a breather if need be?
Yeah, good question. So it's going to be, and it sounds like they're both going to get a couple shots, both in pass pro and on the ground, just because you can't be like, oh, if this guy's in the game, only X is going to happen. So it's going to be Bryce Underwood, who we mentioned from the spring game, and who looked, he only carried the ball 4 times last game against Purdue, but 23 yards, ran hard, hit the hole. And this guy, Sharon Moore said, is the second fastest player on the team behind Justice Haynes. So he's got some of that speed, that breakaway speed, if he can find a hole and get going. And then the other is true freshman Jasper Parker. We've been hearing a lot about him. We were hearing about Andrew Marsh. We were hearing about Jamar Browder. Marsh obviously broke out. Browder really got on the field this last week and kind of took Samaj Morgan's reps. I would expect more Jamar Browder in the wide receiving core. But Jasper Parker is going to get some run. He's run, I think, 16 times for 69 yards, and he scored a touchdown against Central Michigan. Kudzol scored a touchdown against Central Michigan as well. But other than that, until last week, there's just, when you have Haynes and Marshall, there's just no room for a third back. But they'll both see some action.
Which is why I wanted to ask, because it's not like Michigan fans are going to be getting to know those guys as well, right? Because they're going to be seen in kind of smaller actions. So, no, I mean, Marshall, he looked like a man possessed in that Purdue game, right? Like he was running with an extra gear. I think of that run that probably a lot of fans think of when he ran through the scrum kind of by the goal line and ended up breaking through, and it was like, oh my God, he did a vanishing act through the defense there. It was just like he was running with almost, Isaiah Pacheco and the Chiefs, how mad he runs. That's how I kind of like envisioned Jordan Marshall last game, and it's just like an extra gear. So certainly that's going to be a big storyline, seeing if he can keep building on what he did last week. But outside of that, what are some other things you're watching here?
Third down. Northwestern is, and you saw this again against USC, Northwestern is happy to just take 3 yards, 4 yards. I mean, they don't rely on explosive plays. They actually have more explosive big play potential than they have in recent years, but they don't need it. Like, you could say that Michigan hasn't put a ton of like long, lengthy scoring drives together, right? Like, even against Purdue, they had 3 touchdown drives. One of them, they started at Purdue's 33-yard line, and another was Jordan Marshall 25-yard screen pass, Jordan Marshall 54-yard run, 2 plays, 18 seconds, right? There's not a ton of 10-play, 75-yard drives that take off 5 minutes and 42 seconds off the clock. That's more what Northwestern does. And so there's going to be a lot of third and short, a lot of third and manageable, I would say, on both sides of this ball. And whoever wins that battle, like whoever just has a better conversion rate and is able to keep the sticks moving, that's going to be a really telling stat, especially because Northwestern is number 17 in the country in terms of time of possession at more than 32 minutes a game. And Purdue just held the ball for 33 minutes against Michigan. And so, I mean, it keeps your defense fresh. It shortens the game. And when you're the underdog, you want fewer possessions. And so Michigan's going to have to get off the field in order, more often than not, in order to just give their offense more shots, because they haven't been, I mean, it's not like they've been scoring a ton lately, even though they put up 31 against MSU, but Michigan State gives up 31 points to everybody, number one. And number two, it was really 24 before things throttled down and Marshall broke a big run late with like 2.5 minutes left.
No doubt. Defensively, anything in particular outside of, get who they can get back, who they can get healthy, and obviously staying healthy too?
Turnovers, if that counts as defense, it's probably the third key here. Michigan, for only the second time this year, lost the turnover battle last week, 2-1. They also were not positive against USC. I think they were even. I think it was 2-2 that game. So it was the first time they lost the turnover battle outright. If that happens against Northwestern, then you really got to be concerned about not just forget covering, but about winning this game. That could be the difference right there. Preston Stone, Northwestern's quarterback, I believe it's the most in the Big Ten. He has 9 interceptions, so he is prone to throwing the ball away. Michigan has 11 picks on defense and 9 different players. Cole Sullivan has 3, and then 8 other guys have 1. So it's not just like, it's not like they have like a Sauce Gardner, right? Where it's like, just don't throw at Sauce and give them an opportunity and just pick on CB2. There's a ton of people on Michigan's team who, defensive linemen, linebackers, defensive backs, who can make plays on the ball. And so, and then obviously Underwood just turned the ball over twice in the red zone. We just talked about it. How conservative with the ball is he? Or I don't even know if you want to be conservative, but just
careful.
Is that careful. I was like, is that half a step back from conservative, right? Like, you want to pick your spots. And that's what Sharon Moore said, right? Like, we don't want to take that away from him, but we want it to come to him when he's trying to make those big plays happen. So turnovers would be my third key.
All right. Let's just get right into our picks and our predictions here. Just to reset, me and Tony are now exactly tied at 2 games under 500, baby. Clap it up for that very mediocre subpar performance for us. 21-23 on the season. So let's just get right into it. Michigan is a noon kickoffs, 11 a.m. Central Time in Chicago. Michigan is a 12.5 point favorite over Northwestern. So, Tony, do you think the extra points are a cause for concern, or how do you see this one going? Give us your prediction for the actual game as well, in addition to the spread.
Yeah, that's enough to get me to pick Northwestern, right? They've played a lot of teams tough. Michigan, if you just look at some of their common opponents, right? It was a pretty similar situation at USC. Northwestern, it was tied with Nebraska late. Michigan was up 3 on Nebraska late. Michigan did win that game. Northwestern did lose that game. But these are all sort of in the same ballpark. And if you're giving me 12.5 points on what could be a windy day at Northwestern or at Wrigley Field, I just think points are going to be a little bit more at a premium. And so that's just a decent amount. There's a number of ways to cover it, right? Like Northwestern scores early and then Michigan's got to win by 3 touchdowns the rest of the way. Or Michigan goes up early. It takes one. We saw Michigan State backdoor cover them a couple weeks ago, right? It's just, that's a lot of points. Michigan has not played well the last few weeks. You got to call a spade a spade. They were fortunate to get by Purdue. It was pretty sloppy in East Lansing as well. That Wisconsin game was not great. I know that's going back about a month now, but Washington was the best win. And that was 7-7 late in the third. And Washington just showed they don't travel to the Midwest well. They lost to Wisconsin. And so all these signs are pointing to Michigan is not clicking. Now, last year they came out of the bye and just ripped Northwestern. Maybe something like that is in the cards. I don't think so. So I think Michigan wins the game, but I think it's going to be another undecided game in the fourth quarter. You go, and then I'll have a score. I don't know. I haven't gotten to the score yet, but Michigan wins the game.
I think I'm even leaning a little more towards Northwestern than you are. Why we mentioned this USC Northwestern game so many times now, but I remember like as Northwestern fumbled that ball, I'm like, man, they might be able to give Michigan a bit of a game next week. So I would not be completely, totally stunned if Northwestern won this game straight up. I think if I had to predict, I would bet that Michigan would win somewhere in the range of like 24-17, 24-21, and, somewhere in that low scoring margin there. But with that, I mean, I'm taking the 12.5 points if I was betting this game for sure. So I think we're kind of seeing it the same way, but I think I'm maybe even giving Northwestern a little bit more of a chance to maybe pull off an upset here, because this is kind of a little bit of a weird spot for Michigan. It just has all that feel that it could get like really wonky, right?
No, I think we're in lockstep. If I didn't come across that I think Northwestern has a very legitimate chance to win this game, I do. I absolutely do. I'll say, I think like almost the exact same score as last week. It was 21-16. I'll say Michigan 20-16. But Northwestern could be up 16-13 in the fourth, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Michigan wins this game, but if they win it by more than 2 scores, you'd go home feeling really good about yourself.
Yeah, and the other thing that you touched on is Michigan has been quick hitters, right? And that doesn't necessarily help you cover the spread, whereas Northwestern likes a more long, drawn-out drive and is less likely to go for big play or bust, right? So if Northwestern can put together a few long drives, like 2 or 3 long drives, eat up some of the clock, that's another aspect that's going to help Northwestern potentially cover. If you leave cover in this game, I feel like you feel pretty good as a Michigan fan, right? So that's kind of what makes me think that Northwestern is the pick here. So let's move on to another noon game. Notre Dame at Pitt. Notre Dame, this is pretty much it for them, man. They've got Syracuse and Stanford in the final 2 weeks, right? So if they can get over this hump against number 23 Pitt, this is it, right? So it feels kind of like one last chance for them to stumble. Otherwise, they're going to be in the playoffs. So how do you see this one going with Pitt as a 11.5 point underdog?
Yeah, they just walloped Navy, right? Riding high, feeling good. But the fighting Pat Narduzzi's are going to give them everything that they want. And then Mason Heinschel, the true freshman quarterback from Oregon, Ohio, which I love. He's actually pretty good. This guy can sling the ball around. His last 5 games, 323, 321, 140, 423, 304, over 300 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. And that's when he took over the job and really started to run with it. If you give me an offense that's that prolific and you're giving me 12 points, 11.5, right? I just think, again, I think Notre Dame wins the game, but that's a lot of points for me and I will take the points. And it's at home, right? I believe that's in Pittsburgh.
It is at Pitt. Yep. Yeah. No, I think we're totally,
certainly.
Again, boring, but we're kind of in lockstep here. I think that it's a tough test for Notre Dame, right? It's going to be everything is on the line still for Pitt, who is 5-1 or 5-1 in the ACC and 7-2 in the conference. And we should probably talk real quickly. Are you aware of how insane this ACC standings are and how they theoretically could miss the whole dance?
That league is horrible. That league, Duke right now is favored to go to the title game, or they're in one of the top 2 or 3 spots.
But they have to pass over 2 of the other.
They've lost to Tulane.
It's a mess, man. And Georgia Tech is still 8-1,
Tulane, Illinois,
5-1 in the conference, right? But they have to play Georgia still. So that's going to be a loss most likely. It's just like this conference is a mess. So Georgia is 5-1, Virginia is 5-1, Pitt is 5-1, SMU is 5-1, Duke is 5-1, Louisville and Miami both have 2 losses in the conference. It's just a mess. Right. So it's going to be entertaining to watch over the final few weeks. And you can just see Pitt just kind of squeaking something out here, keeping it close, and they have everything to play for. So I'm rolling with Pitt and the points as well. Speaking of kind of ugly games, Iowa, number 20 Iowa is at USC, a 6.5 point underdog against the Trojans. We mentioned Notre Dame. We mentioned USC and Northwestern last week, where the Trojans kind of ran away with it, but it was close early on against Northwestern. So how do you see this one going against Kirk Ferentz and the Hawkeyes?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about this one, but I will take Ferentz, Phil Parker's defense to sort of grind me this one up. It's been tough to slow USC down this year, but if there's a defense in the league that can do it, it is Iowa. They just suffered just a gut-wrenching loss against Oregon. And now their CFP shots are over. Probably their Big Ten title shot, is also over. So what do they have to play for? Pride. Give me Iowa.
Yeah, I see it a little differently. I just think that USC is a little higher class, in the higher class of the Big Ten this year, like maybe a half step above of Iowa. They're at home. Iowa is they're tough out in their home stadium there in Iowa. So it's like it's a little bit of a different squad. I was going to say Carver Hawkeye, and then I was like, what? Now I couldn't say
that's a hoops arena.
I know, but I couldn't think of Kinnick right when I was on the tip of my tongue. So I ended up calling it their home stadium, like a nincompoop. So thank you for saving me there. So USC, I like to take the 6.5 points and cover that spread there. All right, last game here, Texas at Georgia. This one was a fun one last year with Georgia beating Texas at Texas. So who do you think gets this one done? Georgia's 6.5 point favorite over a suddenly surging Texas team, who I'm guessing, are you buying Texas? I feel like that's a team that you would typically short.
You're right. It is, but they're playing better of late. I mean, they just are. It seems like people wrote them off, but much like Geno Smith, they didn't want to write back. You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, I think they're playing pretty good ball. Sark has the team bought in. Arch Manning. It's almost like you need more than like 4 or 5 starts to understand like what college football is about. And now this is about as tough as a test gets, right? Going to Georgia. But I guess I'm just a sucker for the points this week, right? Like I see a lot of these games being tight, 6.5. This could be a 4-point game, right? And then so maybe Texas has the ball late and they need a touchdown to score and they don't, but they're still inside the number. And so, I've seen some places where like Texas is, just shooting up the CFP odds. You know what I mean? And like some people are picking Texas to win it all. I'm not there yet, but I'm not like overwhelmed by Georgia or like unbelievably impressed. And so Texas.
Yeah. I'm the SEC would tell us that would be the case this year, right? With like kind of everybody beating up everybody. Like Oklahoma loses to Texas. Texas loses to Florida. It's just kind of all over the map this year. But with that said, I'm just not buying Texas yet. I mean, we have a 45-38 win over Mississippi State in overtime. They barely beat Vanderbilt 34-31. They had to take overtime to beat Kentucky the week before the Mississippi State game. So it's just like, I'm not buying it yet. And I think that Georgia is just going to be the better team.
That Vandy game, was more lopsided. I mean, I was on Vandy, so I was not happy about it. And I knew, and I said it when we recorded, I was like, this is a 2.5 point spread. I already know they're going to lose by 3, but give me Vandy anyway. And then sure enough, that's what happened. Vandy scored like 14 points in the final 5 minutes or something, right? No, that was a 17-point game in the fourth quarter. And I think, and obviously that game against Mississippi State was horrendous, but they were down 17 in the fourth. And they came back. I think that has served as like that's galvanized this team and gave them a spark and show like that was the tipping point in the season. And normally it tips like teams like tip off the cliff, but that's got them trending up. I know you said that was the last game, but I want to throw one more at you because we should have put this on the board. Oklahoma at Alabama, Bryant-Denny Stadium, 3:30 kick on ABC, I believe. Yep, ABC. The Tide favored by 6.5. Who you got? Oklahoma, Alabama.
I'm going to go Alabama. I think Oklahoma is it's time and time again this year. Ever since that Michigan game, I've wanted to pick them, and they're playing a little bit better now since that loss to Texas. But just feels like a really tall task against an Alabama team who is it feels a lot like the old Alabama, right? I mean, it's just a buzzsaw. So I'm going to go with Alabama, even though I don't like picking against Mateer and that Oklahoma attack, which is pretty fun to watch. And they've been finding ways to win games that they maybe shouldn't, right? So it's hard to pick against Oklahoma. But at Bryant-Denny, I'm not picking against Alabama.
Yep, I'm the same way. Oklahoma just hasn't been clicking since Mateer went out and came back. Their running game has really just never got off the ground this year outside of Mateer, right? And if you're one-dimensional against Alabama, probably not a great recipe. The Tide, they just really like pretty easily handled LSU. It took them a while to put them away, but there was never a moment in that game where it's like, oh, I think LSU might win this, right? And that was after the Brian Kelly situation. And so they were getting the new coach bump and they still couldn't do it. Right. And so I just think Alabama's rolling. They had their scare against South Carolina that day where you just don't play well for whatever reason. They survived it. And now they go on a roll. They're looking for a bye in the college football playoff. Right. And a win over Oklahoma could help. Are they 4 right now? Are they 5? I can't recall the college football playoff rankings. They are 4. So they're looking to hold on to it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Oklahoma did beat Tennessee at Tennessee, right? They lose to Ole Miss. They lose to Texas. It's just like, man, again, Oklahoma's schedule is just so brutal. And then they just get Alabama as the cherry on top here at Bryant-Denny. So it's pretty brutal. And I feel like that if anything, you got to give them Alabama the edge because they might be wearing down a little bit over this just ruthless schedule, right? So all that said, we'll be watching another great week of college football ahead of us here. Michigan, Northwestern. Week after that, we got Michigan at Maryland. And of course, Michigan, Ohio State to finish the season. Tons of good football ahead of us. Big Ten championship game still in play for Michigan. Believe it or not. It's crazy to say, but it absolutely, Tony could be booking trips to Indianapolis still. So everything is still in front of this Michigan team, as we have been saying all season long, even after the USC game, even after the Oklahoma loss. We've been saying everything that Michigan wants is still in front of them. Still the case right now, heading into the final 3 weeks of the season. So stay with us online at freep.com. Make sure to share the podcast. Check it out if you find it in our articles. We try to embed it in there, so check it out there as well. Thank you to our sports editor, Bill Bradley. Thank you to the editor of this podcast, Robin Chan. And of course, boss up top, Nicole Avery Nichols, who makes it all happen for us here at the Freep. With that said, enjoy some morning beers if you're going to Wrigley, like we discussed, right, Tony? And then anything else, however you like to celebrate Michigan football. And we'll talk to you guys next week.